The Surprising Science of Life-Changing Moments, episode 581. Today's sponsor is the U.S. Toyota Dream Car Art Contest. Stay tuned at the end of this show to learn how students in the United States can enter this inspiring contest and get lesson plans to design a dream car that makes the world a better place.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
So today we're talking with Dr. Mike Rousell about the surprising science of life-changing moments. So, Mike, you have studied these tiny personal moments that we look back and we say, you know, somebody said such and such to me when I was in 6th grade, or this happened when I was in 9th grade, and it changes their life. How would you describe these moments before we get into the science of understanding how and why they happen?
Oh, well, I describe these moments as dramatic, profound changes in how you feel about yourself or how you understand yourself, and beliefs about how you act in the world and how you see the world. And I can give you an example because it doesn't just happen with children. It happens throughout your entire life. For example, when I did my little TED Talk video, I looked at the TED Talk and I thought, oh, that's pretty good, except there was one thing that really bothered me. I didn't think I used my pauses very well. They seemed like they were a bit of a distraction. And maybe they were too long, and then they weren't long enough. And so the only real criticism I have of my TED Talk was the pauses. So fast forward a couple of months, and I'm working with this author in London, and he corresponds, and he said, Mike, I saw your TED Talk. It looked pretty good. What I liked the most was your pausing. I thought you were the master of the pause. Yeah. Boom. He surprised me with that comment. Now, here's what happened. With that surprise, he changed in a moment entirely how I thought about myself and the use of the pause. And now when I use a pause, I use it deliberately, strategically, and I do it confidently. Because after all, I am the master of the pause. And prior to that, I used it hesitantly and I was anxious about it. The motivator neurotransmitter dopamine, what it does is if you're anxious about something, if you're hesitant, it drops a little bit. And so you start to feel anxious. But when you believe you're good at something, you're more motivated. So what happens is your dopamine, your motivator neurotransmitter, it just moves up a bit and it encourages you to go ahead and do it confidently. You know, after all, I am the master of the pause. So I started collecting stories of moments that transformed you. And I would ask my students and I'd ask, and I looked at celebrity stories. You'll see a lot of them on TV or read about them. And so I collected thousands of stories of moments that transform people. And I found out that most were during a moment that surprised them. And it changed something from, I'm not very good at it, to, oh yeah, I'm really good at it. And those little moments created a whole different mindset. And many of them created a growth mindset. I collect the stories mostly from my students now, and I ask them, what events when you were a student seemed to make a big difference in your life? You know, for example, one of my students told me the story about she thought she wasn't very good at math, and she wanted to become a teacher. And she worried that because she wasn't good at math, she wouldn't be a very good teacher because she'd have to teach math in the elementary. And she was actually in university at the time, considering going into education. And a professor said, those who struggle with math actually make the best math teachers because they have to look at math in so many different ways. Boom, surprise. Now, not only does she not worry about teaching math, she actually thinks she's going to be good at it. And if you think you're going to be good at it, that mindset helps you prepare and organize and go at it confidently, which can only make you a better teacher.
So you've talked about these moments, and it sounds like it happens in surprising and unexpected times. And I'll tell you, as a teacher, when I've been teaching now for 18 years, kids will come back and say, when you said this, it really made a difference. And truthfully, most of the time, I do not remember those moments because they were not remarkable moments for me, but they were for the students. So how do we be that kind of teacher that can, of course, flattery never works. We want to be authentic in our compliments.
Absolutely.
But how do we nurture this sort of internal transformation towards positive things?
Vicki, you raised some really interesting points, and you sort of sound like a veteran of positive influence, the way you talk about that. And certainly praise does not work. Praise looks phony and artificial, and it's empty calories for kids. And so one of the nuances of using surprise is to, when you deliver a comment, make sure it sounds declarative, because praise can sound empty. So make it so you're stating the facts, just the facts. So when somebody is struggling with math, instead of saying, you sure struggle with math, you say something like, oh, your ability to work through your math problems is a sure sign of a strong learner. Now, if little Johnny was working at math in the third grade or something, if he's working at math and he's struggling, he's going to give up easily, because his dopamine level, his motivator neurotransmitter dopamine, drops a little bit every time he does math, because why waste time here? The payoff isn't that good. But if you say to little Johnny who's struggling with math, your struggles is a sure sign of a strong learner, or your ability to stick with your struggles is a sure sign of a strong learner, that little comment now boosts his dopamine levels. Why? Because you just mentioned that he's a strong learner. Who doesn't want to be a strong learner? So he associates, because of the way you constructed the comment, he associates struggling with being a strong learner. And so his dopamine level boosts a little bit. Now, if you surprise him with that comment, that kind of a comment, a descriptive, declarative comment about how this cause, staying with math, makes you a good learner, that's descriptive. But if it surprised him, a surprise is essentially a neurological error signal that says, it's a big burst of dopamine that says, pay attention, something really important is happening. That's what a surprise is. It's an error signal saying something really important is happening. And surprise is essentially a two burst of dopamine. The first burst, only the last millisecond, says, pay attention, something really important is happening. And the second is a slow burst, says, learn something instantly. And the reason you have to learn something instantly is because in our past, surprises to our ancestors were usually imminent danger or immense opportunity. And those that stop to think perish. So we have this genetic heritage to learn instantly.
I think that when we are upfront and truthful about challenges, for example, one thing I often say to students when they have a challenge in a particular subject is I'll say, you know what, it is awesome that you have found an area where you have to struggle, because that is strength training for the challenges of life. Who do you think you are that you're going to have everything go easy in your life? Because none of us have everything go easy. And when we have an area where we have to work and we have to struggle, we can get stronger now, because when you get older and you face a hurdle, you won't be a quitter. You'll be someone who persists and someone who pushes through it. You will be stronger. And setting that picture of reality that, things aren't easy for everybody. I mean, most of us have something that we're not good at doing.
You're absolutely right. And so I teach my students who are becoming teachers. I say, get out there and use declarative statements, not praise. And when you do that, no matter what you see, make sure it leads to a productive result. So working slowly means that you're working thoroughly, and that makes you a gritty learner. So no matter what you get, no matter what you see, you observe it and you link it to grit, or you link it to a growth mindset, or you link it to a positive outlook. And that's what they get from a declarative statement. And if you can surprise them, bang, that neurological burst further embeds it deeper into their belief system.
And that's what we want to do. We want to change lives, transform, help kids to reach their full potential. This is awesome. Thank you, Mike, for the surprising science of life-changing moments, because we all want to have many of those in our classrooms, don't we?
We do. Now let's go out there and enrich students' lives.
Today's sponsor is the U.S. Toyota Dream Car Art Contest. It opens November 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2020. It's for youth ages 4 through 15 in the United States. In the U.S. Toyota Dream Car Art Contest, students are invited to submit hand-drawn artwork answering this question. If you could design a car to make the world a better place, what would it look like? Teachers can also download a free standards-aligned lesson plans on car design that includes both STEM concepts and art. That makes this an excellent cross-curricular project. Visit www.toyotadreamcarusa.com/coolcat. There you can download artwork guidelines, official rules, an entry form, and the lesson plan to prepare your Toyota Dream Car USA artwork submissions today. Remember, that's at toyotadreamcarusa.com/coolcat. Such a fascinating conversation today, and I would just challenge you to think about those students who need those conversations. And yes, I do think upon reflection that it's the surprising moments that sometimes catch students off guard. I know for me, I think about students and I often put them on my list of, I want to talk to these several students this week, or I've got something to say to this student or that one. And I'll call them over to my desk and I won't be talking to all the kids. I'll just talk to one or two different days as they are on my heart. I do think that having those individual conversations does make a difference. And if you're not sure about that, go way back to the very first episode I ever published called Sue and Mrs. Scruggs. It's one of my most popular episodes, and you will see how one of those conversations is actually why I'm here on this planet.